and welcome to Founders Fail, Lessons Learned. My name is Jose Castillo, and it is my great pleasure to welcome Shannon Castillo, co-founder of Spark Plaza, and also my wife, and I'm excited to talk today with you about failure.
That sounds riveting.
I want to start out with a quote. This is by Napoleon Hill. It says, "Most great people have achieved their greatest success one step beyond their greatest failure." Do you agree with that or disagree with that? Do you think that's true?
Yeah, I actually do. When I think about what I do in my professional life in commercial real estate, one of the things I learned early on is you don't learn from your successes, you learn from your mistakes or your failures. And it's really true.
I agree. I'm curious to know, and we've talked about this before, but your definition of failure, like in the Shannon dictionary, how would you define failure?
No one wants Shannon's definition of failure because it really is the fear of failure, not actually failing. I think when I look back in my life, and you and I were talking about this earlier, my failures are the times that I didn't act because I was afraid more than anything else.
So what is the difference between failure and fear of failure? How do you define those two different states of being?
Quite honestly, I think the fear of failure is worse than failing itself, because our minds play tricks on us of a worst case scenario end result that the likelihood of happening is next to nothing. But it's what keeps us from doing something really great. And I know every single time I face that, some situation or a task or anything in my life that I have fretted about or had anxiety or thought, I'm gonna fail, I'm not gonna be able to pass this test, I'm not gonna be able to do this thing. And then seeing on the other side of it where it all works out. Of course it all works out. Does it work out perfectly? No. But it all works out, and it's never as bad as I thought it was going to be.
I have to give you credit for one of my great failures in life was trying to start a co-working space. And I went through it with several other business partners, wrote this big business plan, tried to pitch a big idea, et cetera, and finally came down to it. Shannon and I were talking, and I had come up with a little kind of much smaller plan, and I had a fear that it wasn't going to work, and I was kind of like, I'm out. And then you at the last minute said, Jose, we need to do this. And so I give you credit to Spark Plaza being here because it wouldn't have existed without you getting me over my fear of failure. So thank you for that.
Well, I can't believe it all happened anyway, but being married to you for 21 years, there were a lot of years of, I have an idea, I have an idea, I have an idea. And some of them were just these really grandiose and pie in the sky. And there was something about this co-working space that I was like, I can make those numbers work. I could put pen to paper and say, if we had X amount of coworkers, we could pay these bills, and here's what the bills were. And those puzzle pieces were easy for me to put together and say it was worth taking the risk. And it's shocking to me because I am very risk averse. But it was the one time that I really believed that we could do something really great, and we have, and who knows what the future holds now.
So I asked you this morning before you had coffee, which was the wrong time to ask it, but now you have time to think about it. What is your greatest failure in life?
So yeah, when you asked me this morning, I really got to thinking back, and I really go back to the fear of making a decision, not necessarily a failure itself. And then when I think about things that maybe I'm not so happy about, jobs that I've lost, or goals that I didn't achieve, what's interesting is as I play that history out in my mind, it all happened for good. That failure or the time that I lost my job ended up giving me an opportunity I wouldn't have had I not gone through that. And I think probably the biggest time in my life that I felt like a failure was when I got laid off in pharmaceuticals. And it was an awful time. I would never want anyone to have to go through what I went through. I know I was in a deep depression, but what was interesting when that happened, and when you're in pharmaceuticals, you get everything. You have a car, and you have a computer, and you have the 401k, and you have the great insurance, and there's nothing worse than you lose your job and someone comes with a flatbed trailer and takes your car away. And just being without a job and then without a car, knowing what are we going to do next, and having a friend of ours call us and go, I have an extra car, would you like to borrow it? And just that being a huge blessing in our lives. It was a practical blessing that we needed. And now fast forward 10 years. Here we are in 2020, in the middle of everything that's going on, and being able to bless people. Now, I don't have an extra car lying around, but I have some extra cash. And being able to bless people just anonymously with extra cash, knowing that someone blessed me when I needed it in my time of failure, being able to give that to somebody else is a way to really pay it forward.
So what would you say to somebody out there who's struggling with either failure or fear of failure? What's one thing, tip, trick, etc., that you could share that somebody could do right away, right now, to help them either be comfortable with failure or get over the fear of failure?
Mel Robbins is someone that I've read a few of her books, and she has this thing called the 5-second rule. And it's a mind trick. If you count backwards, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and then you move to action, it may just be enough to get you through to the next thing. And I know if I'm worried about failing in a particular class, perhaps, that I know what's gotten me through is just to go, okay, you need to move, and you just need to do the next thing. You don't have to do the big thing, just do the next thing. And by counting backwards, it actually kind of works.
It really does. That's a great tip, and try it. And honestly, I love talking with you and all the stories we've shared together. I wish we could talk more, but we would love to hear your stories as well. And you can share those on social media with #FoundersFail. We would love to hear your stories. So Shannon, thank you so much for joining me today.
You're welcome.
We'll see you next time on Founders Fail, Lessons Learned.